Good afternoon and welcome to the July meeting of the Town of Newbury Human Resources Board. Present at the moment are
Diane Doyle,
Mark Gleckman,
John Farrar,
Anthony Antico.
thank you all. Lynn Peabody should be joining us momentarily. Chief Lucy will not be here. So let's dig right into the first item of business on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from the prior meeting. Diane, thank you in advance, as always, for having sent that out. Has everyone had an opportunity to read through it?
Yes.
No, I haven't.
No. Okay, do you need it?
Yes, please.
I sent it on June 29th.
Oops, I'm sorry.
Oh, that was an early one then. Oh, I probably done that.
You probably have.
Yeah. Yes. I know what this is.
I think there was a correction.
There was.
Has it been made?
Let me see. Yes, it was made.
Okay.
Spelling of creditable.
Creditable.
Credit. You all set, Tony?
That's fine, yes.
All right. Is there a motion to accept the minutes as written?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
None.
Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the minutes as written say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Diane. Employee issues, nothing that I'm aware of. Diane, anything that has come to your attention, either at Town Hall or any of the line facilities, PD, library, DPW?
No, the only thing I'll mention is that I know that the governor or the lieutenant governor signed in order to extend the option for remote meetings through, I believe it was March of 2023. So that in the event in the fall, if there's a tick up in, COVID or what have you, I know that they've extended that. It was just announced, I believe, July 13th. Should I pause this? That is to stay open. So I did happen to notice that she just signed that. I believe on the 13th or the 14th, Lynn might be able to speak to that, maybe or maybe not. So that in the event that we have to do hybrid or we have to go remote, that is an option.
Diane's referring to the lieutenant governor signing new paperwork extending the option for remote meetings. Are you familiar with that?
No.
Okay. Is that was very recent?
Yeah, just
Okay.
I think on the 13th or the 14th. So,
Okay.
I mean, I don't anticipate that many of the boards and committees are going that route, but it is something that has been put in place that if we need to, we have that ability.
Right. Okay.
Other than that, I can't think of anything.
Thank you. No other employee issues? Okay. Personnel actions and job vacancies.
Let's see.
I think there were a couple of trailing openings, weren't there, in the last meeting?
So, youth services, that's been filled. The only thing that I can think of is we have just filled the laborer position with the DPW.
Okay.
That person's starting on the 8th of August. So the DPW will be back at full strength.
Okay.
And there is a promotion of a part-time emergency communications officer to a full-time.
Okay, great.
Also starting on the 8th. So that will now bring us to 3 full-time emergency communications officers.
Great. And wasn't there a trailing item about a position within the PD over the shellfish side or marine, the waterway side, that there was some preliminary conversation about it being restructured or adding more responsibilities? Or
Yep, so we have 2 positions that are affected by the shellfish constable is going to be having the assistant harbor masters assist with days if he can't be out.
right.
So those 2 job descriptions will be revised and potentially we'll need to look at those.
Okay.
I
But
know,
they're not ready for prime time yet.
I know John Lucy submitted them to Tracy,
Okay.
but I think there was some discussion about the edits.
Okay, so maybe we'll have them on the agenda for the August meeting.
And whether or not we have to gather a
Subcommittee.
subcommittee. So I don't know at
Job
this point.
description, yeah.
Because there isn't a little bit of a change, I don't know that it will, how drastically it will change the responsibilities, but I know John did submit it to Tracy.
Yeah.
I have not seen it
Well, if
yet.
there's an increase in responsibilities, we would probably want to form a subcommittee. It's possible that it doesn't rise to the level of a reclassification, but we should probably make sure that's the case. So, okay, so we'll hold on that until the August meeting. Thank you. Other than that, everything is up to
Quick
snuff.
question, on the promotion that you mentioned, would that be a promotion or a reclassification? If they go from part-time to full-time, is that considered?
It's not a reclassification. She's just going from part-time.
So reclassification of hours rather than a promotion? I don't know how the town would
I don't know if
qualify
the
that.
term promotion is appropriate. She's moving from part-time to full-time.
Yep.
There are 2 separate job descriptions for that role, I believe. I think we have 2, because
You're looking to Mark.
I know.
Help me with this.
So you think the job description would differ based on the number of hours?
I feel like we have a full-time and a part-time.
Okay.
And so there
Because
would be
one of them
enhanced
is,
duties or something for the full-time?
it's benefit eligible
Yep, but
at
as far as
full-time.
the duties go.
I think the duties are the same. I think it's the structure of the position being full-time benefited.
Okay.
So it probably doesn't require reclassification.
But I don't know if
Yes.
promotion is necessarily, she's moving from a part-time status to a full-time status.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes those things just make a difference to the incumbent. Oh, I got promoted, or oh, I got reclassified,
Right.
just semantics.
Yeah, I think it's more, I don't think it's reclassified, it would be,
Reclassification in the number of hours.
right,
Which would be, part-time not benefited, or some small benefits,
right.
and then full-time benefited. Just a question.
Okay. Thank you.
You know what, you're correct. It is listed as a classification change if it's from one position based on hours to another. Which seems like an odd word because
Yeah.
we talk about classification in terms of, well, I guess it is the structure of the position. So this isn't the individual, I'm just saying when
Right,
we
right.
go from part-time to, so you're right, it is considered a reclassified.
Yeah, so they use classification change as sort of a catch-all.
Yep, sure.
Yeah.
So as we have people classified in exempt versus non-exempt, part-time versus full-time,
Right.
per diem, all of those are classifications.
That's a good point. So it's really a wording change as opposed to a classification in terms of grade.
Yeah, not a
Position.
change
Right.
in grade,
Right.
probably unless there would be a wage change going to full-time.
There is a wage change.
There is.
Mhm.
Not just based on the hours, but an actual rate, the hourly rate changes?
I believe so.
Okay, so maybe there are different responsibilities.
Yeah.
That's why I do believe there's 2 separate job descriptions.
Yes, okay.
So if there's a wage change and enhanced duties with a new job description, that would most likely be a promotion.
Not classified as such. or-
Promotion. It would be promotion under a classification change.
What does that trigger?
Nothing. I believe there's 2 separate job descriptions that
I
cover.
can check with Tracy
Yeah.
on it to confirm that.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so if need be, you can always double back with that next month if it requires any.
Well, did
I
we
don't
have
think
did we have to vote on that? I don't think we
No.
did.
No, I don't think
No.
it requires, I think we put this in place, this is the 3rd individual that's moving into a full-time position.
Right.
So I don't think there's anything necessary in terms of our purview of the
Yeah,
job description.
It
I
hasn't,
think it's semantics, and I think you bring up a good point, that it
Yeah.
is considered a promotion under a classification change, and I'll just confirm at the next meeting that we do have 2 separate job descriptions.
yeah.
What
Good
has
catch.
been, what has been the practice in years past when a reserve officer becomes a full-time? Or is that a different
They're slotted
category altogether?
they're slotted into a completely different role.
Okay,
Yeah, we've never had any part of that process,
okay,
so.
all right.
Okay, good
All right.
catch, man, thank you. Nothing that I'm aware of in the category of ethics issues, anything happening in the workplace, discrimination issues. Diane, are you aware of anything? No one's come to?
No?
Okay, thank you. Safety issues, in Chief Lucy's absence, I'm I'm not aware of any new protocols that have been put in place at Town Hall or any of the other town facilities over the past month relative to COVID or anything else.
No, nothing's changed.
Okay, things still remain copacetic
Yep,
in terms of the public access, and
yep, we haven't had any change in.
no
traffic.
masking changes?
Nope.
No. Okay,
Not as of
great,
yet.
thank you. Other business, couple of trailing items, organizational chart issues. Diane, you want to speak to that?
Yep, so I had a meeting scheduled with Matt, and Tony graciously showed up for it, and it had been rescheduled, so I apologize for that.
Of course.
And then
Matt is Matt Cooper, by the way. the
Matt
IT
Cooper,
director.
yeah. So I had another meeting that took precedent, and I had to reschedule that, so that's been rescheduled, or will be rescheduled after this meeting. So are
Okay,
you still interested in
Yep.
joining us? Okay, that would be,
Sure.
okay,
okay,
great.
so I'll reschedule and get the date out.
Yeah, great, thank you. I want to CC Tracy on that,
Okay.
just so she's aware.
Mhm.
And the other trailing issue also needs to move back a bit. There was a little bit of confusion over the last couple of weeks relative to agenda items for tomorrow night's select board meeting. And as a result, Chief Lucy's resignation letter and Deputy Chief Patty Fisher's interest letter in joining us did not make it onto the agenda
Oh,
for tomorrow night's meeting, unfortunately. So that's going to have to be moved forward to their August 23rd meeting,
oh, gosh.
which is the day after our next meeting, which we'll get to in a little bit, which is Monday the 22nd. And Diane was just mentioning to me earlier that it would be nice coincidentally to do something, anytime a long-term member of this board resigns, we've had a history of getting together and a little social for 15 minutes, whether it's brownies or, a cake or something like that. So Diane makes a great point. This would give us an opportunity to invite both the chief and, if she would like to join us, Deputy Chief Fisher, to come to our next meeting. The select board won't be taking it up until the next evening, John's resignation and Deputy Chief Fisher's interest, but at a minimum, we can invite them both to sit with us in the audience and grab 15 minutes and toast John for all of his efforts over the years and give Patty a chance to see us in action, that night. So
How long has he been on the board?
I believe,
10 years, maybe a
no,
dozen years.
I thought this was his second term. I thought we just talked
John?
about that.
Oh.
He
Well, that would make
came in
it
at the
5 or
same
6
time.
years.
So 20,
So it would be
You and John came in at the same time?
4.5 years.
yeah, I was gonna say
Oh.
just shy because he's actually not fulfilling his second term.
Yeah.
Okay, so up until that point, you were the only employee rep? Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, Mike Riley didn't serve,
Yeah. Okay.
so
So-
just under 5 years.
I have a question on the employee rep business. Is that some sort of an appointed role? It's an employee rep for the town. Are the unions involved who's selecting that rep? I know very little
For
about it.
the HR board?
Yes,
For the HR board.
Right.
Yeah.
So I believe that the charter speaks to having at least a minimum of one HR board
Right.
member serving as an employee rep.
who may or may not be an employee, or it must
No,
be an
it's
employee.
required to be.
Okay.
Required, must
Yeah,
have.
if you look at the town bylaw, the personnel bylaw, chapter 2022, it speaks to the fact that the HR board should consist of 6 members, one of whom is required to be an employee of the town who functions as the employee rep. We've enjoyed the benefits of having 2 employee reps over the last 4.5 years. We're only chartered to have 1, but personally, I think it's great to have 2. Not that we've needed it, but on the off chance that an employee issue does come up and Diane's on vacation or out of town at a conference, or it would be nice to have, I think, that backup available. Deputy Chief Fisher would serve in that capacity if, in fact, the select board chooses to appoint her in their next meeting, or It's not a requirement. If for some reason someone else popped up and was, and the select board was interested in that person serving with us, then we would just go back to the one employee rep.
So in the bylaw, there was no limitation on how many employees?
No, it requires at least one
At least
member of
one.
the HR board be an employee rep. And if there were two, which I think would be
But even the,
great, even better, yeah.
This
But
is-
that employee rep only, in terms of town government, only functions as it relates to the HR board.
right.
That they don't have any official HR rep or employee rep responsibilities outside of the HR board, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
The decision for having somebody like yourself as the exchequer, an appropriate high position in the town's governance, or is it any employee, no matter how far down the road you go? It would make common sense to have somebody of your high-level position, your integration into all things going on in this building. I mean, somebody that doesn't have your perspective and your influence would not make an HR member appropriately.
Well, I think what has been nice is that from a benefits perspective, as an implementation perspective, that's sort of like what my employee rep role sort of serves. It's been nice to have John, because if somebody had an issue that they felt was sensitive, or that they didn't want to go to someone like myself, where I work within a lot of the departments, it's been nice to have someone on the police department who, if they felt that there was a sensitive issue, they could go to John and hopefully now Patty. And so I think it's worked well from that perspective. And then in addition, I think the police being one of the largest departments in the town, it's nice to have.
Yep.
So I appreciate what you've said. I think it's been nice to have both the benefits and the having someone that maybe has a little bit different role in terms of sensitive issues or.
They know the personnel better than anyone else in the
Yeah. So
system. The EXO is going to be able to do the same
so
thing.
it's worked well to have those two.
Yeah, but Diane makes a great point, and that is that if a sensitive matter pops up, whatever it might be, a grievance, favoritism, ethics issues, and if it were to happen in town hall, then an employee might be somewhat hesitant to go to Diane and might be more comfortable going to somebody outside of town hall. And the same would be true within the PD, which again is, if not the largest, the second largest department in town. Somebody in the PD, may not be as comfortable going up that chain of command as they might be coming to, somebody outside of the PD. The good news is, I don't think we've ever had, at least in all the time that I've been on the board, I don't think we've ever had, other than, a question about a benefit or, something like that. But in terms of a grievance, in terms of an issue with a boss or anything like that, there may have been one of the past, I can't remember it. And so that speaks to the quality of I think the leadership in all departments and the fact that people are doing it the right way. So, yep.
So I have a question. I'm looking at the grievance procedure on page 57. So when you reference that, so what role would Diane play in a grievance? If somebody had a grievance, what role would she play as being on this board and being in her position, like day to day?
Well, I
I don't have
guess,
the policy in front
yeah,
of me.
nor do I, but
You should-
off the cuff, I would think that Diane's role would be, depending on the nature of the question or grievance, if it's something that needed to be handled, well, obviously it's going to be handled confidentially. If it's something that Diane felt that she could cover on her own, I think that would be the first step of the process, but more than likely Diane would bring it confidentially to the other members of this board.
So in looking at this procedure, level 1, the employee brings the grievance to their supervisor. Level 2, to the department head.
Yep.
And
it
then-
goes to the town administrator.
Let's see, the grievance shall not have been disposed of. The aggrieved employee may within 5 working days submit their grievance to the HR board, acting as the personnel relations review board. Okay, so I'm just trying to, like, put the conversation into a box
Right.
where, so Diane, as being an employee of the town, what would your role be versus, sitting on this board? What would your role be?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it spells out, sort of the steps that an employee would take. They'd bring it
Right.
to their supervisor, they'd go to their department head.
Yep.
It would come to the HR board. I believe there's somewhere, it also speaks to the town administrator. In terms of my role, things that people come to me about is more specific to, I don't know that my role, nowhere in here does it say the employee rep would serve as a.
HR manager, right,
Right.
for the town?
If I can, I always perceive this employee rep role to be something that would come well before or in advance of an official grievance being filed. I don't see it as being part of the grievance process.
Sorry.
It would be that an employee would come to one of the reps with a concern. Here's what's happening, what can we do about it, what steps? And then if perhaps that employee weren't satisfied, didn't get the relief that he or she might want, at that point, you go to the official grievance process. I may be alone in this regard, but I don't see the employee rep as being part of the official grievance process, other than the fact that he or she would be a member of this board if a grievance was filed. I don't know how else
Okay,
you feel about
and
it.
that's fine. I just wanted to, kind of address when you were saying, Mark, about, where would somebody be likely to go, if they had an issue, and would Diane or would John Lucy be somebody that they would be comfortable with? And so if I'm an employee of the town, why would I know that? Why would I know that I could bring, my concerns to an employee rep?
Right. Yeah, it's stated a little bit differently if you look at our page on the website, if you look at our
Okay.
charter.
Okay,
And if I'm not mistaken, in the last paragraph of our charter, it kind of speaks to that. I think it says that that the HR board, through its employee reps, serve as, as a safe, as a responsible, as a confidential opportunity for employees to come if they'd like to discuss issues, something along those lines.
okay,
So that maybe speaks to the,
okay,
what our role would be there, but it's not in that does not exist in the personnel policy. The personnel policy is the more formal grievance process.
yep,
Somebody's got to be in the bonnet and they want to be heard. And the grievance process starts with step A, A, B, C, D, so.
yeah,
That,
And I think most things that do come, either through questions or an issue or, they pretty much have been resolved. If there's been questions that have come up, it's never risen to the level of a grievance per se,
okay,
a formal grievance process.
mhm,
We'd want to be really careful and sensitive if someone were to file a grievance, that it be handled appropriately
Oh,
both from a legal
absolutely.
perspective,
Yep.
and that's not something that I'm necessarily trained in. I think it's more, we serve as a guidance for people. If they have questions or they have issues, we sort of point them in the direction or help guide them with the answers if it's a relatively simplistic question. But I wouldn't see myself serving in a role where I'm handling a grievance or working through a grievance. I think that's something that would involve this board, the town administrator, potentially legal counsel. If it rose to that level, we'd want to be really careful how we handle it.
yep. Okay, and then I have one more question with changing an employee rep. So John will give his letter of resignation that will be accepted or not by the select board.
right.
And then what would be the process for the next person coming in? They need to do a letter of interest, they need to.
Which has happened, yeah.
Meet with the select board to introduce themselves. So is it kind of an automatic, or is it, that's gonna be the end of, that's gonna be the end of August? When will the next employee rep be able to come onto the board? Would that not
Technically, it
be
would be the September meeting if they're voting on
the
it.
September select meeting in which they
No,
approve that?
our next meeting would be
22nd
the 22nd.
of
The
August.
Yes.
night after that is the select board meeting where they will take up John's resignation and Patty's interest, or anybody else's interest
Okay,
in the board. And typically, they would vote on it that night.
okay, all right, that was my
And because
question.
they're voting on it that night, that means that whoever is the new member of the board wouldn't have any official capacity with us until our next meeting, which is scheduled for the end of September.
Okay, one more question,
Yep.
sorry. Should we announce that there's gonna be a vacancy and put it out to the employees to see if anybody else is interested?
Well, we haven't done that in the past, there's no reason why we couldn't. It does sit already in the, as I mentioned last month, we never took it out of the volunteer opportunities list that sits on the front page, or not the front page, but if you look at the website, lower left, it says job opportunities, you click on that, and then the next page shows up, it has actual job opportunities, paid opportunities for the town, and below that, volunteer opportunities. It just so happens that the HR board volunteer opportunity sits at the top of that list of 4 or 5. We never took it off after you joined us. So in theory, people should be aware, but you know, you make a good point. There's no reason why we can't broadcast it, should anybody else be interested.
Sometimes in the interest of transparency.
Yep. Yeah, and that would be, put it on bulletin boards, I guess, or?
We could post it on the 2 bulletin board.
What does
locations.
anybody else think? I mean,
Well, coming back to my original question is the qualifications for sitting
Right.
in your chair are large. And you bring a lot to the table with your position and your understanding and your connection and networking within the top brass of this town's management. An employee out of that circle, out of that level of influence and understanding, training, would be lost. I mean, I think everybody sitting here, you obviously have extraordinary HR experience. We have an attorney at law, you're somebody who's championed benefits for 40 years with the largest benefits purveyors in the country, and your background is fully there, and Lord knows if we don't have Diane Doyle, we're a ship without a paddle. And so basically, I'm not sure posting to a broad base, I don't know if it's already out there, the process would be the same way that Tony and I were recruited and Lynn was recruited, was through people who knew of us, and we were out there. Frank Remley brought me to you, and we've known each other for 45 years. And Tony's consummate skills and background, et cetera, et cetera. This is probably just a handful of people qualified for the chair you're sitting in.
Right, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think Lynn might, I mean, to Mark's point, it's been listed on the website as a volunteer opportunity. It's never been taken down.
Well, to be fair, the volunteer opportunity speaks to the HR board in general. It doesn't speak to the fact that the volunteer opportunity is for the employee rep.
Well, correct. I serve currently, I'm still, I think I just signed up for 3 more years as the employee rep, I mean, as a member of the HR board,
Right.
for which I serve as the employee rep.
Right.
There is no requirement that we have a secondary employee rep.
Right.
I think, to Lynn's point, if we want to post it on the website for general volunteer opportunity for the board, we're not looking for an employee rep. We're looking for someone to serve on the board who has adequate credentials to add value to the Human Resources Board. We're not looking for someone that's going to serve as a secondary HR employee rep. I think that's...
it sounds like a union,
Yeah.
right?
What's that?
Yeah.
It sounds like a union.
A union?
When some of this conversation, you know, like, as we're talking it through, You know, and I'm just getting the thought in my head that if employees have, and just a thought, Diane, but if employees have concerns, they bring it to this employee rep who is on the HR board, you know, to kind of look out for their interests or something. So just an interesting thought.
Well, it's vital. It's right on the mark. How would we announce it other than,
We would just take the
Post it on the bulletin
we would
board.
just take the volunteer opportunity that's listed and we would just post it on the bulletin boards.
Okay.
It's not a bad idea,
Yeah.
especially where we've been delayed. In the event that someone says, well, I didn't check that page, or I didn't know about it, or, but it is we're looking for someone to join the board.
Correct. Correct, yeah, it would not be posted as the employee rep. It would be posted as.
Do we have an opening?
I'm sorry?
Do we have an opening on the board?
With John's resignation.
With John's resignation, yeah.
So how many people make a quorum for our board?
4.
Okay, so we really don't have an opening for a board member.
Well, we do in that the
A lot of
personnel policy, the personnel bylaw is written as such that the HR board consists of 6 members. And for the longest time, we sat with 5 until your arrival. And so it really is incumbent on us to try to keep it as 6, if at all possible. So in that sense, we do have an opening.
So if somebody from the community, not an employee of the town, applied, would that be,
Absolutely,
you know?
as is the case with, absolutely, sure.
And that would be taken up.
And then, you make a good point earlier about the transparency, and as I was thinking about this, it would seem to me that it probably is a good idea to post it. Not as in the employee rep, but to post it as that we're looking for a 6th member of the board. And then, you know, should other people have interest, whether it's people in the general community or employees, that gives the select board an opportunity to choose.
oh, you mean, between the XO and whomever this person coming out of the. Yeah.
Exactly, and
I mean, but if Patty's put on the board, then that other individual would just go in the queue for future requirements if their interest doesn't wane.
and if the select board chose to appoint somebody who is not an employee of the town, then we will, as we did for many, many years, sit with 1 employee rep. So be it, you know. If it happens to be Deputy Chief Fisher or any other employee of the town, you know, we would ask that person if he or she would be interested in serving as the 2nd employee rep. So,
The question of the XO making application to come to the board, initially, in my own mind, I'm saying that there's, you know, what's going on here, a succession, you know, paradigm. We have the chief, now we have, you know, who's has to retire because of, you know, busy things, etc. And now we have the deputy chief. Is there a required line of succession that rep, employee rep must be representative of the Newbury Police Department?
is it a question or is that
No,
is that an
no,
observation?
that's an observation.
Okay.
Well, I mean, basically, Danny Orfent wasn't on the HR committee, Chief, you know, Mary wasn't on the committee, Mike was invited, but wanted to defer, and so John stepped in. So that wasn't a reach out, grab the largest department in the city, in the town rather, and bring somebody of authority up to the HR board. That was just pure, and am I correct, pure coincidence? And now we have the XO, she is beautifully qualified and likely to be the next chief of police when John goes out to retirement. And she's the perfect insert. But Patty's likely to embrace an announcement and just go before the Board of Selectmen.
Oh yeah, she's made it very clear on
Yeah.
a couple of occasions that
Yeah.
you know, should other people,
Yeah.
you know, she's not making any assumptions that this is fait accompli. You know, she's more than happy to have anybody else who's interested in serving the board to bring their
Yeah.
candidacy forward as well.
So a suggestion, if we do put it out there for interest throughout probably the employee market, right? I
Correct.
mean, we're
The
not
bulletin
gonna, we're
boards,
not
yeah.
gonna put it on the, you know,
Never has been.
broadcast on Newburyport,
No.
you know, Facebook page or something.
Yeah.
But I think that it would be good of us to let her know that we're doing that
Yep.
prior to doing it.
I think
It was discussed
she-
in our little
yeah.
round circle.
She's fully aware that it's up on the website and has spoken to the fact that if somebody else were to step in, I think she genuinely, to Tony's point, I don't think there's an expectation that whomever the next, you know, next in charge on the PD, it's not assumed that that's something that, that's a responsibility that one must take in that role. I think she has a genuine interest, given her background and given her education and her experience with, you know, just a facet of things. I think she has a genuine interest in serving and a genuine interest in HR issues.
Absolutely.
So
But-
I don't think it's an expectation that the next in line must step up. It's assumed that that person would do that. She clearly has, you know, straightforward interest in serving and
Right.
getting involved in HR issues, something that she's said she's always been interested in.
Yeah, and at the same time, she's made it clear in every conversation that should there be someone else out there who, for one reason or another, the select board felt would be a more appropriate candidate, that, so be it. So,
Yeah, I don't think there's a question of nepotism here. This
Yeah,
is
no.
just coincidence that John is stepping down because of all the complications that are being chief of police at this moment.
right. Right.
I
So,
think this is a good discussion to have,
Yeah.
you know, proactively
Mhm.
rather than reactively.
Well, I think your idea
Yeah.
of bringing it out to the full light is perfect.
So we'll post it.
Yep.
Good.
post on the appropriate bulletin boards, town hall, library.
What is done with other boards? Is there an employee rep on other boards?
I'm not aware.
I don't believe there would be a need for an employee rep on a planning board
Yep.
or a board of health
Yeah, I
board.
think we're unique in that.
I think
regard.
we're, yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's unique, so I will move forward and post those tomorrow.
Okay,
Thank you, thank you.
yeah, sure.
Good? Okay. So hopefully we will have
Plan.
we will have a new HR board member joining us hopefully as of Tuesday, the 23rd of August.
Wouldn't it be not till the end of September?
Well, joining us in that, the select board, that would be the date at which the select board would be voting to accept somebody to join the board. Their first meeting wouldn't be till September.
Yeah.
But once they're a member of the board, then they can be part of our, whatever communication we may have. And so
Okay, I'm sorry to
They
do
become
this.
they become appointed
they become appointed.
Okay, so
the night of the select board meeting on August 23rd. They
Okay.
become appointed,
that was my question.
yes.
Thank you.
There's
Or
a-
technically, the next morning, if they come in to get
Get their
sworn
oath.
into the
Yeah,
town clerk.
Okay, all right.
Was that gonna be the question?
That was the
Okay.
question, yes,
Thank
of
you.
course, yeah.
Tony, did you have something? No? Okay.
The swearing in,
the swearing in.
The swearing
The
in
day after.
constitutes signed here. There is no swearing in.
Okay, so I think that completes our other business.
I actually just, can I update
Yeah,
on the
please.
questions that came up
Oh,
at
you're
the
right,
last
thank you.
meeting?
Yep, thank you. Must I?
Must I? So there were 3 questions that came up about the personnel policy at the last meeting. The first of which was
Sorry.
the word creditable.
Sorry.
So I went back and I read the section, and the word creditable appeared with the exception of 2 that were in those paragraphs that spoke to the specifics. So I've gone ahead and corrected that.
Yep.
Any questions on that?
Nope.
Okay. Page 30, then, to make sure that the use of narcotics or other intoxicating beverages reads just as intoxicants.
Okay,
I've gone ahead and amended that. Neither of which we believe needs to go back to town council because
Okay.
it's wordsmithing. Page 33, however, to clarify with the town clerk if, quote, all employees may, should be must complete. Minutes, it says my complete. Both the ethics training and receipt of code of conduct materials. So the conflict of, the way that the policy reads, John has it there. John, do you want to read that highlighted?
The town clerk shall distribute a summary of the conflict of interest law in paper or electronic form to be covered to all covered employees who shall acknowledge receipt. Failure to abide by this code of ethics may result in disciplinary action up to and including termination of employment.
Okay, so in talking with the town clerk, the language as it's written, covered employees means all employees with the exception of what's considered a special municipal employee must acknowledge receipt of the code of conduct materials. There is a list of what we consider to be special municipal employees. I believe there's a legal definition, Tony.
Different class of
Different class of employees.
Right.
The word that's missing in that sentence is annually. So the town clerk
Receipt annually.
annually. So further, there was a question about the ethics training, where you go through and you complete that exam and you get a certification that you've passed your test. That is every 2 years and is also by all employees other than special municipal employees.
And that does not appear in the
And that is
policy.
not mentioned in the personnel policy.
So we need to add that piece.
And then there's also open meeting law. So we think that there's enough here that we need to wordsmith and probably run it by town council
Yep.
to make sure that those 3 documents, as they're required,
Right.
it's written in the policy the way it
Right.
should.
And those are every other year.
Who are these special employees?
Pursuant to the requirements of the conflict of interest law, the following positions elected and appointed are hereby designated as special municipal employees for the town of Newbury. I believe there's a list, there's probably about 30, some of which will not make sense that they're not subject to those requirements. I believe the town of Newbury designates who those are. Don't quote me on that, but I believe so. We submit a list to the State Ethics Commission of those positions that are exempt.
What other
believe-
defines them in that category?
I don't have it with me, but I believe, Tony, you, I don't have it. I don't
Taking out the blue book.
Yeah. What's the question?
What constitutes a special municipal employee?
I don't remember seeing that in
A
the,
special, is that anywhere defined in?
I
the
have it, I
language?
don't have it with me.
Is it in the policies?
It might be. We're on the first, we're under the first section where it has the list of identifying positions. I believe it might.
Special coverage employee,
Page 12.
page 12. I don't know if I have the most recent policy manual here, so I need to make sure that I get it most recent.
isn't the
Okay.
select board?
Special coverage may qualify for town payment of premium costs at the same rate.
That's different.
Coverage
No,
of
that's
costs.
different.
That's employee
Yeah,
benefits.
That's different.
benefits.
Yeah. This is specific to the requirement to fulfill that annual or
Training
semi-annual or every other
requirements.
year obligation.
The town clerk spoke to the fact that there are some on here that I believe, and I'm gonna find out for sure, but I believe that these are decided on by the board of selectmen, but I'm gonna have to go back and.
Yeah,
I have language
it's not
that
our,
speaks
it's not
to
our
it.
purview. It's a curiosity, I understand, but it's not our, we've never been part of that process.
So, I mean, as the HR board, you know, maybe it would be something to educate ourselves on and, you know, see if we're comfortable with that. And if not, maybe, you know, like question why these. Like, so what type of positions are they, Diane? Do
So
you have-
some that will make sense, and like I said, the town clerk said there are some on this list that you'll say, of course they should, they should, but this list, I believe, is, we'll find out.
And you don't have to say names.
Oh, it's positions.
Position,
good.
not me.
The Agricultural Commission, the Animal Control Officer, the Board of Assessors, Assistant Town Clerk, Board of Appeals, Board of Health, Board of Fire Engineers.
And then those
there's-
employees,
these are-
those board members are employees?
They're designated as special municipal employees.
So do they
They
get
could
a
be
paycheck?
employees or boards or commission members.
Right. Some boards are compensated, some boards are not, they're volunteer.
Okay, so like, is the HR board on there as a special?
No,
So we have to take the ethics training?
correct.
Yeah, so it's just curious, like, why do we and
No
not?
rhyme or reason.
Yeah. So, and I wonder if maybe that was just something that was put into place at some point for whatever reason, and it's just rolled over year to year, never
Oh, actually-
reviewed or anything.
Look at this. I take that back, I'm sorry.
Personal.
I think this list is from 2014, so it probably needs to be updated.
Yeah.
Well, here's the
This is-
interesting thing. If you read this first paragraph, it says pursuant to the requirements of the conflict of interest law, the following positions, elected and appointed, are hereby designated as special municipal employees for the town of Newbury. It does not specify what that means. It doesn't specify whether that means, it doesn't say, therefore these folks don't have to take the ethics training. It just says, pursuant to the pursuant to the requirements.
But it's submitted to the State Ethics Commission.
Yeah.
So I think there's some
So the
work.
law itself should have in it somewhere
There is a special.
some definition of
Yes,
it for
there
those
is.
purposes.
Correct.
I don't
There
know,
is-
I think it'd be worth questioning and wondering. I mean, is there any other thing besides not having to take ethics training that defines them differently than
Yeah.
regular
Why don't
employees?
we do a little bit of homework on that for our
Yeah.
next meeting? I think it's worth
See,
it.
you guys are gonna rue the day that you voted me on.
Can you send me a copy of that?
Sure.
I'll talk to Tracy about it.
So, more work to be done.
Yeah.
But relative to the personnel policy, we are going to, maybe we explore this first before we go to the point of changing that section.
Okay.
2014 was a long time ago.
Yeah, that's fine. What's the term?
Certainly is.
Special?
Special municipal employee. There is a, I believe there is a mass municipal, a mass general law. I believe there's a mass general law that covers special municipal, yeah.
Yeah, that as well. Okay, I'll talk to Tracy about it and
Okay, thank
see
you.
what we need to do for our next meeting. Thank you. Okay,
That is it for me.
irrespective of this, we do need to add the language regarding the traditional covered employees, the fact that not only are they required to sign the ethics piece, but they're all, the conflict of interest piece, but they're also required to
To do
semi-annually
the
do
ethics.
the ethics training,
Yep.
which does not exist in the language now. So at a minimum, we need to change that,
Yep.
and then potentially look at that list as well.
And we'll
So,
have town council just make sure she looks
Yeah.
at that.
okay. I'm not aware of any other new business to address. Anyone? That said, schedule our next meeting, which would be Monday, August the 22nd at 4 PM. We'll invite John to join us. And I think it would be appropriate to invite Deputy Chief Fisher and/or anyone else
I agree.
who may be interested in joining this board as the sixth member. Invite them to join us for our August meeting for the purposes of seeing what we do, how we make the sausage. as
So
well
let's
as-
have a
as well
good
as-
agenda.
What's that?
Let's have a
We'll
good
have a
agenda
robust
for the
agenda.
August
We'll
meeting.
put some meat on those bones.
Yeah.
Right. So August the 22nd at 4 PM.
Okay.
With that in mind, is there a motion to,
Did you have something, Tony?
I'm sorry?
Oh, I didn't know.
just
if you-
fidgeting, who's
okay.
fidgeting?
Fidgeting.
Oh, no.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.